welcome back to our Bible study. We are going to be continuing through the life of Jesus. Last week we went through Jesus' first miracle, which was Jesus turning the water into wine. And today we are going to be going over Jesus cleansing the temple. So, yeah, which I thought that was closer to when he was arrested. Seems a little strange, but I guess he cleanses the temple multiple times. So, without further ado, we are going to dive right in, and then we will be getting back to the subathon. Alright. So we're going to be in John chapter 2, verses 13 through 25. The Passover of the Jews was at hand, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. In the temple he found those who were selling oxen and sheep and pigeons, and the money changers sitting there. And making a whip of cords, he drove them all out of the temple with the sheep and oxen. And he poured out the coins of the money changers and overturned their tables. And he told those who sold pigeons, "Take these things away. Do not make my Father's house a house of trade." His disciples remembered that it was written, "Zeal for your house will consume me." So the Jews said to him, "What signs do you show us for doing these things?" Jesus answered them, "Destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up." The Jews then said, "It has taken 46 years to build this temple, and you will raise it up in 3 days." But he was speaking about the temple of his body. When therefore he was raised from the dead, his disciples remembered that he had said this, and they believed the scripture and the word that Jesus had spoken. Now when Jesus was in Jerusalem at the Passover feast, many believed in his name when they saw the signs that he was doing. But Jesus on his part did not entrust himself to them, because he knew all people, and needed no one to bear witness about man, for he knew himself what was in man. So, we're seeing here immediately Jesus dealing with people misusing the temple. They're going to the temple and they are selling things. They're selling oxen and sheep and pigeons. It's basically turning into like a little marketplace for livestock. And Jesus ain't having any of it. So he very quickly goes in, flips some tables, makes a whip, gets rid of everybody. Sorry, my dog has been like super attention needed this morning, so he's on my lap. And this, a lot of people will take the interpretation of this and will talk about things about, like, there's not really much that you can talk about when it comes to this. I feel like it's pretty understandable what's being said here. So Jesus talks about how they were misusing the temple, and he drives people out because the temple is a place of worship. It's a place for them to go to worship God, and it was being misused. So don't misuse what God has given us. Especially in the instance of this particular temple, it had taken 46 years for it to be built up, and so it was a big deal. And so Jesus then also does extra foretelling and says, "Destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will rise it up." And the Jews didn't understand what he was talking about, but that was another foretelling of Jesus' death. So throughout all of the passages of Scripture, Jesus is always going through and talking about his death. He's foretelling the he's foretelling his death. Like that's exactly what he's doing. There's no like sugarcoating that at all. I just realized I saw the music playing. Whoops. So, this was happening during Passover, which was an annual holiday for practicing that was practiced in remembrance of the liberation from Egypt, from the 10th plague, which was the Passover. But I won't go into a lot of details on that. But Jesus goes and like fine. Uh, like Jesus. I mean, he's the Son of God, and so Jesus goes and immediately, uh, kind of like continues to assert himself by driving people out of the temple. Um, and he makes sure that the people understand that he can do that as the Son of God. And then um in where is it? In verse 17, where it says, "The disciples remembered what was written, zeal for your house will consume me." That's a direct quotation from Psalm 69, where Jesus is perceived as demonstrating Jesus is shown as demonstrating zeal for God's house. And that shows him, that like distinguishes him from the majority of temple pilgrims, because Jesus is able to go in and demonstrate a zeal like that of the psalmist. He shows his uh, he shows his passion, his care for God's house. And I think that is something that is really, I mean, I'm not surprised if somebody were to go and do something or misuse like my dad's church, for instance, as a pastor. I would probably show a similar level of zeal. I would not want other people to be misusing what it is that my dad was doing. And then it continues on where Jesus foretells his death, um, again, and this time adds in the resurrection. So last week when we looked at the wedding of Cana, at Cana, Jesus did not foretell his resurrection, but he does foretell the resurrection here by saying that if you destroy this temple and in 3 days I will rise it up. And we get a little of explanation from John. He says that when Jesus was raised from the dead, his disciples remembered that he had said this. And then the last 3 verses goes into Jesus was in Jerusalem at the Passover. Many believed in his name. So at this point, Jesus has many people that are believing in him. More people are coming to know him. More people are believing that he is the Son of God, that he is the Messiah. Which is big. But Jesus also understands man. That's what is being said here. So when it's saying that Jesus he himself knew what was in man, what he's talking about here is sin. Sin is in man. And it sucks. Because it is. It's how it is. It's how it always has been. It's how it always will be. Is that man is sinful. Romans says, "For there is none not righteous, no, not one." And so Jesus knows that even though there are many people who are coming to believe in him, he knows their heart. And he knows that they're not truly believing in him, but rather they're believing in what they've seen him do. So that is where this concludes. Is Jesus continuing and showing his understanding of man, and he's not relying on man and their hearts to push him forward. So I mean, that's really kind of all that's there with this. There's not too much. Just a small little thing. I don't want, like, since I don't do any prep, I'm sure there's a lot of stuff we can actually pull out of this, but since I'm not doing a lot of prep, I'm not wanting to make this something where I'm preaching. I'm just wanting to share a passage of scripture, talk about it, and just absorb it together. So that's all that we really have for today's Bible study. So I hope this was a cool little passage to see Jesus taking care of the things that he really cares about. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day for those who are watching this on YouTube. And always remember that you are loved, you are valued, you are fearfully and wonderfully made. And we will see you next time, right back here next week Thursday if you're watching this on YouTube, or Wednesday if you're watching this live for more Bible study. Have a good week, everybody.